Well, I guess I just can't catch a break, can I? I thought I'd review the first episode and that'd be it. I could take a week or two off and relax for a little while, recharge my batteries, and come back refreshed and ready to hit the ground running with something new and different to talk about. But no. Now, you people insisted. You just had to watch the Stargirl review and demand more. You just couldn't let me escape this superhero suckfest, could you? Fine. You want it so bad? Well, you're gonna get it. I cut my vacation short to get back to work for you people, and I can feel my blood boiling already. But that doesn't matter, because this is what I do. And you know what? I resent the idea that the stress has become too much for me to handle. That I'm somehow jaded or burned out by all the terrible TV shows I've had to watch lately. That I'm supposedly cracking under the pressure and it's starting to affect my work. Pfft. Do you have any idea how ridiculous that sounds? You people are insane. I am a professional YouTube critic, damn it. I mean, the very idea that the stress is getting to me is so ludicrous, I am laughing at all of you right now. Ha! Ha! So buckle up, people. You wanted a Stargirl review? Well, you're about to get the best Stargirl review you've ever seen. Hit the intro and let's do this. Alright, it is way too damn hot for this. So, episode 2 picks up right where we left off last time. Pat flies Courtney away while Brainwave emerges from the tire yard, having gotten a hold of Courtney's slightly singed school ID during the fight. So now he has her school ID, she knows that he's the father of one of the jocks she beat up at the drive-in. They both have all the information they need to learn each other's identities quite easily, but only one of them will actually make logical use of that information. Which one do you think it'll be? So Pat and Courtney land at the garage. The armor keeps sparking and stuff, so Pat doesn't have all the kinks worked out yet. This scene starts out nicely, where the staff seems to want to get back out there immediately, but Courtney isn't ready. Her hands are shaking, she's kind of emotional, and they don't draw much attention to it, but these are all good things. They show that she's human. But the moment passes much too quickly, and we move on to Courtney interrupting Pat when he tries to talk about how Brainwave and the Injustice Society murdered a lot of his friends back in the day because she only wants to hear about Starman, who she still thinks is her father for some reason, even though Pat and her mom both think that's nonsense. She's suddenly very gung-ho about tracking down the Injustice Society and defeating Icicle, the one who killed Starman, and thinks that Brainwave might know where Icicle is. Now, this being only the second episode, the writers haven't quite whipped all the insolence out of the lead male character yet, so Pat is still suffering from the delusion that him being the adult means that he has some kind of authority in this situation, and he tries to shut this whole thing down before Courtney takes it any further, but she basically demands that he tell her everything about how one of the villains that killed the Injustice Society just happens to be in the place they just moved to, and she's brandishing the cosmic staff threateningly, so it's not like he can say no. So 5 minutes into the second episode, and Pat has already lost a dick measuring contest to a 15-year-old girl. I think Luke Fox was still technically exuding more soy by this point in Batwoman's run, but Pat is not far behind him. So they go back to the basement at the house, and Pat tells her the story. Our man was the only hero to survive the battle, and he tracked the Injustice Society across the country until he and his wife came here and died in a mysterious accident. Meanwhile, Pat had built the armor so he could help Our Man, and he followed their research here, and that's where he met Courtney's mom. And he didn't think any of the supervillains lived here in Nowheresville, Nebraska, or if they did, they'd long since cleared out. If he thought they were still in this town, he never would have moved the family here. So, Brainwave being here was just a coincidence then? Well, it's hardly the most ridiculous thing to happen on these shows. Courtney is just obsessed with going after Brainwave, and she's not letting this go. But Pat correctly points out that she's not thinking about how this could expose her identity and put the family in danger, and he doesn't want her ever touching the staff again because, you know, she's only 15, has no idea what she's doing, and could get killed doing it. And on a well-written show, all three of those things would mean something. But that's not the kind of show they're on right now. And so, since the possibility of a gruesome death via impalement by an icicle doesn't deter Courtney whatsoever, she starts brainstorming costume ideas and ends the conversation with, "I'm not gonna sit on the sidelines like you did, Pat." Star bitch. This right here is the big problem with the episode. Courtney's evolution as a superhero is way too fast. She was just introduced to all this stuff, just had her first superhero battle like an hour ago, and she's already trying to take charge of this thing and wants to start going after bad guys immediately. They completely skipped over the part where she should be shocked and terrified about what just happened to her like a kid should be. And make no mistake, Courtney is a kid. It's like the writers are falling over themselves to get her into a costume so she can start fighting crime as fast as humanly possible. But to do that, you have to disregard the fact that right now she's a complete newbie who should still have no idea what the hell is going on, much less have any idea what to do about it. The next morning, we get a montage of Pat working on the armor, trying to get this arm cannon weapon to work, but it keeps malfunctioning in various ways, including, but not limited to, lighting the armor's ass on fire. Comedy. So then Pat makes breakfast for everybody, him and Courtney have to lie to the mom about their injuries, and yeah, Courtney was actually injured in the fight with Brainwave, I forgot to mention that last time. So, it seems that female characters are not indestructible on this show like they are on Batwoman. That's certainly a plus. Courtney bails on breakfast pretty quickly, so Pat made all those pancakes for nothing. More for Mike, I guess, but the episode doesn't really care what Mike is up to. And what happens next could have been a good subplot, but instead it's just frustrating. Courtney goes down to the basement. She finds the Starman costume that Pat had taken the trouble to clean and maintain. He folded it up and put it away carefully with reverence because this was his friend's costume and it's clearly important to him. So Courtney takes the costume, stuffs it in her backpack, sneaks into the home ec room at school without locking the door so anyone could have walked in on her at any time and saw what she was doing, cuts the suit to pieces, and alters it to fit her, destroying several sewing machines in the process. Courtney is being very inconsiderate and selfish here. She stole someone's property, destroyed school property, and that I don't have a problem with. It shows that she's not perfect and characters are supposed to have flaws. What I have a problem with is that the show presents this as a you go girl moment, and at no point does anyone ever admonish her or take her to task for doing this. It's never even brought up again. You'd think that Pat would have something to say about her destroying Starman's costume, but no, he never says a word about it. All that was missing here was someone telling Courtney that this behavior is not okay and for her to have enough humility to acknowledge that. But they don't even bother. Stuff like this is what made Kate Kane such a reprehensible character. I'm not putting Courtney in that same category yet, but this didn't exactly help her case. From there we cut to the asshole Jock's house for a minute. He's trying to steal money out of his dad's wallet when the dad calls him into his office to grill him again about who beat him up. He's embarrassed about losing a fight to a girl, so he says a guy did it, but lying doesn't do much good when your dad is telepathic. Then the dad wants his son to tell him what he's thinking, but he has no idea. Looks like he's testing his son for superpowers, and clearly the kid is a disappointment to him for not having any. Still not much to go on with the asshole Jock yet, but at least they're starting to inform his character a little bit, I guess. Then Pat checks out Crusher's gym looking to get ripped. And then we cut to a montage of Pat trying to work out and kinda sucking at it. Comedy. Cut to lunchtime at the high school where Courtney is again sitting at the losers table. One of the losers is video chatting with her parents and seems attached to them to an unhealthy degree, but this girl's mom works with Brainwave in his civilian identity as it turns out. So he walks in, gets on the computer, and tries to check the high school records against Courtney's school ID picture looking for a match. I'm not sure information like that would be public, but I guess it's not a big deal. We can just say he hacked the school files or something. Now, why he's not doing this somewhere private is anyone's guess, but... And the other loser at the table isn't very talkative. She doesn't like it when Courtney looks at her, and then storms off. So, not much to go on with her yet. So that night the school's doing an open house thing where all the students and their parents get together, eat cheap catering, and talk about all the places they'd rather be than here. Brainwave is there scanning the crowd for Courtney, and Courtney's looking for him too, though she didn't bother just looking for the jock she beat up the other night and seeing if he brought his dad with him, because that would have been too easy, I guess. So Courtney talks to Pat, says they should split up and search for the guy and meet back at the punch bowl in 20 or some shit. She's again trying to take charge and boss him around, and the poor schmuck must have boxed up his spine along with Starman's costume because his 15-year-old stepdaughter gives him his marching orders, runs off without even giving a shit what he thinks, and once she's gone, he just mutters under his breath, Don't tell me what to do. I like Pat. I like Luke Wilson. So no offense to either of them, but where the hell has all the testosterone disappeared to on this network? Oliver and Dig are lucky they got out when they did, because it seems like there's been a major effort on the part of someone in a position of power at DC or wherever to give every male character on every DC superhero show I've seen lately a concentrated soy injection. And they're all just lining up for it. Just hook it to my veins! Are there any men left on these shows that actually act like men? Black Lightning, maybe? John Constantine? Beats me. I'm not up to date on any of them, so who the hell knows anymore? Anyway, there was one thing in this scene that I thought was interesting. Crusher is at the open house, and we learn a couple things about him here. He's married, to a woman no less. He has a daughter, who he seems very proud of, and he goes out of his way to see that Pat stays on the diet that he just put him on. So I may have judged this character too quickly last week. I thought he'd just be a sock puppet for the writers to bitch about toxic masculinity or a closeted gay person, but it seems like there could potentially be a third option. That's quite surprising, actually. So eventually Brainwave confronts Courtney in the hallway. She says that he's gonna pay for what he did to Starman and the JSA, but he's not taking her seriously at all, even though she already beat him the first time they fought. He reads her mind, finds out everything about her pretty quickly, then tells her to bring him the staff at midnight or he'll kill her mother by giving her a telepathic stroke, because that's a thing he can do apparently. Remember this for later. So Courtney tells Pat what happened, he feigns food poisoning to the mom, and they call it a night. Later, after everybody's gone to bed, we actually have a good scene. Courtney wants to go face Brainwave and get justice for her dad and the JSA, and sorry, but that part was stupid. She should not be this confident or this brave yet. I'm reminded of the season 1 finale of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where there's this prophecy that Buffy will face the Master and she'll die trying to stop him. And when Buffy learns about this, guess what? She's scared. She's really emotional about it. She doesn't want to go through with this because she's a teenage girl and she doesn't want to die. It's frightening for her. Then some things happen and she goes to face the Master anyway, but her having that fear, the story having that sense of dread, is what made the story compelling. But there's nothing compelling about this. Courtney's not scared to face Brainwave. Why should she be? She already beat the guy in the last episode, so she knows she can do it. This is why having her advance so quickly as a superhero is such a stupid idea, because it just robs you of drama. Pat even tells Courtney that she should be scared, and he's right. Because her being scared makes for a way better story than this does. However, I'm still gonna call this a good scene because of Pat. Because for one moment, the writers actually allow him to grow a pair of testicles. For one moment, he's allowed to actually be the adult when dealing with Courtney. His only concern in this situation is to keep his family safe. So he finally puts his foot down with her. Listen to me. You're the kid. I'm the adult, so you're gonna do what I say and you're gonna fucking like it. I'm going to face Brainwave, you're staying here, and if I'm not back by morning, it means some real bad shit happened, so get everyone in the car, haul ass out of town, and never come back. And tell your mom I love her. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but for one moment, Pat is actually allowed to be a fucking man. And it's great. So, he goes off to face Brainwave. Courtney stays put. She looks like she almost feels guilty for treating him like crap, and it's probably the best scene in the show so far. So Pat marches into the garage and activates his armor while heroic music plays on the soundtrack, and I like this scene too. No dialogue, but I think it works better that way. Meanwhile, the mom comes to talk to Courtney. She's grateful that Courtney looks like she's been trying to tolerate Pat's existence, and we're gonna make a good life here, and that's all I want for you, and blah blah. And based on this little chat, Courtney decides to forget about what Pat said and go face Brainwave anyway. So she suits up and dives off the roof of the house so the cosmic staff can catch her in midair and make her look super cool. And it's just another thing that she really shouldn't be doing at her current level of non-experience. You almost have to keep reminding yourself that she's only 15 and she shouldn't be this slick and this confident about, well, anything really. So her doing moves like this doesn't make her look cool, it just makes the show look ridiculous. Cut to Pat flying in and landing in the school parking lot. He throws some stuff at Brainwave, who easily deflects it with his telekinesis. Pat does get the arm cannon to work finally, but Brainwave puts the kibosh on that too and starts crushing him in between a bunch of cars. Pat gave it a good try, but it looks like he's done for. But just in the nick of time, Courtney flies in, saves him, and she calls Pat her sidekick. And just like that, his balls shrivel up and crawl back up into his body, likely never to descend again. That was a good couple of minutes Pat had. A good fleeting couple of minutes. So Brainwave throws some debris at Courtney. She dodges it all like it's the easiest thing in the world because that's what the writers think makes an exciting fight scene, I guess. She lands a hit on him, he throws some more stuff at her, and she deflects almost all of it with the staff, but he finally nails her. She drops the staff, and then it just falls to the ground useless. Now, if you're like me, you may be wondering right now why the staff doesn't just fly back into her hand. We've already seen that the staff can move independently of Courtney and has a mind of its own to some extent, so you'd think it would just zoom back to her. But it doesn't. It just falls to the ground and goes dark. Why? This is completely contrary to how the staff had behaved up until now. Why is it suddenly acting like this when it didn't before? If there's some kind of in-universe reason or something from the comics that accounts for why the staff suddenly crapped out, they haven't explained it yet for people who aren't familiar with Stargirl outside of this show, and they need to. Because right now, it seems like it's only doing this because if the staff's behavior stayed consistent, then the rest of the scene couldn't play out the way the writers want it to. So, it. So Brainwave has her pinned down, he attacks her telepathically, and she's in so much pain from this that her ears start bleeding, which makes you wonder why he didn't just do that telepathic stroke thing on her in the first place. But then suddenly Pat turns on the high beams. Literally. He made the armor out of car parts, so he turns on the headlights to blind him. And with Brainwave momentarily distracted, Courtney grabs the staff, zaps him in the head with it, and he's done. Brainwave is 0-2 versus Stargirl. She has beaten the villain twice in 2 episodes with no experience and no training whatsoever. And I'm sorry, but this is bullshit. One of the things that made Oliver's hero's journey work is that he started from nothing. We saw him in the Arrow flashbacks go from a pampered, spoiled, helpless rich kid to a hardened, badass fighting machine. But he didn't do that overnight. I don't think he even touched a bow and arrow in the flashbacks until season 2, for crying out loud. The writers spent 5 years worth of flashbacks turning Oliver into the Green Arrow because they took the time, did the work, and organically got that character from A to B to C to D. But with Stargirl, these writers are trying to get her from A to D in 2 episodes, and they don't give a shit about all that stuff in the middle. Her hero's journey is stuck on fast forward right now, and as long as that's the case, anything Courtney accomplishes as Stargirl is just gonna feel really flimsy and really unearned. So they drop Brainwave off at the hospital. He had a seizure and he's in a coma now or something. And apparently the only doctor who could have helped him was him. So, irony. And it remains to be seen if his supervillain dad being out of commission will improve the asshole jock's mood at all. Then back at the garage, we get another scene where the writers might be trying to screw their heads on straight. Might be. Courtney's wondering what'll happen if Brainwave dies, because that would mean that she killed him, that she took a life. The fact that she's bothered about this, and it's not just being brushed off like it's nothing like when Kate killed Bruce, is a good sign. It shows that she has a conscience. Pat tells her not to blame herself, and frankly, Brainwave really didn't give her much choice, so I don't think it's that big a deal in this case. Not that it should be forgotten about, mind you. So eventually the conversation turns to the Injustice Society. Courtney wants to find them all and get justice for Starman, and Pat doesn't give one single crap that she stole his friend's costume and butchered it to make a midriff-bearing version for herself, and she doesn't apologize for that either. Instead, Pat is just gushing with praise for Courtney. Even thinks she might be Starman's daughter after all somehow. And I don't know where they're going with that yet. Seems to me that the best way would be for Courtney to just hold on to that belief for a while, and then eventually have her dad turn out to be just some deadbeat like her mom said, and that's what leads her to finally accepting Pat as her real father figure. For character development, I think that works the best, but who knows what they've got in mind for this. So Courtney's really excited about this superhero thing, but Pat is not. The last time he was someone's sidekick, his friend died, and he doesn't think he can do that again. But he makes sure to emotionally validate Courtney to high heaven, saying how amazing she is, and how she saved his life, and how she stopped the bad guy and did everything, and she's the reason flowers bloom, and when you Google the word awesome, the first thing that comes up is a big picture of her face. But while Kate Kane would go along with this, would just let him shower her with praise at the expense of any dignity he might have left and take all the credit for herself because she's an arrogant piece of trash, Courtney, shockingly, doesn't accept this. She doesn't let Pat wallow in self-pity. Instead, she shares the credit with him. No, Pat, I didn't do this alone. We beat Brainwave together. And you've got a giant freaking robot suit this time. Pat, you can totally do this. So he's nice to her, and then she reciprocates. They have a bonding moment here, and it actually feels genuine. Pat's emotional baggage is handled honestly. Courtney is shown to not be arrogant and self-centered to the point of madness like Kate, and because of that, the scene works. Weird how easy that is sometimes, isn't it? The problem is, the second this moment passes, Courtney is like, okay, so, bring on the next bad guy. Which one do we take down next? Meaning that, for all intents and purposes, Courtney is still calling the shots here. And it shouldn't be that way. Why? Because Courtney's a fucking 15-year-old kid. Kids that age are just not gonna have their shit together like this. I'm sorry. She's had the cosmic staff for all of 2 days at this point. She can be the lead character, but she shouldn't be in charge of anything right now. Realistically, Pat should be calling the shots at first. He should be the mentor, the guy who teaches Courtney how to use the staff, how to be a hero. But instead, she figured out that stuff all by herself in the span of about 2 days, and if anything, she's the one who's teaching him. Again, they're just taking shortcuts with the hero's journey instead of actually doing the work. So what's the point of having a mentor figure at all then? Cut to a new villain arriving somewhere. He opens up a secret entrance and goes into some underground tunnels where he has some big monster locked up. That's Grundy, I'm assuming. Then he goes into a conference room, because the Injustice Society have one of those. Some dude shows him a picture of Stargirl, and he's like, hey, I killed Starman. I'm pretty sure I can kill this chick. Then he freezes the photo, and this is Icicle. This wasn't a bad episode exactly, but it had a lot of bad things about it. The writers are completely botching the hero's journey. They're in this mad rush to get Courtney into the hero business and fighting supervillains faster than you can blink, but they don't care about doing any of the setup to get her there. She doesn't need any training, because she's just magically great at everything, so they can just skip all that. Unfortunately, that doesn't make her development better, it just makes it a lot less interesting and a lot less credible. I'm going back and forth on whether Courtney is a potentially decent character or just another SJW sock puppet. I don't have an issue with her stealing the costume, but her never apologizing or admitting that it was wrong of her is another story. No one calling her out for her bad behavior is a problem, as is her being great at superheroing without even trying, as well as the writers seemingly being unwilling to let her fail at anything. But at least she's not so arrogant and so self-centered that she can't share the credit for things or show vulnerability from time to time. And I think the actress is okay. She hasn't done badly so far, and she can convey emotion way better than Ruby Rose ever could. Not that Rose ever broke the mold in that department. I will say this was a better episode for Pat than the pilot was. He does need to get his balls back from the writers and stop letting his teenage stepdaughter boss him around. But he's still easily the most likable character on the show. He did have that one scene where he got to be the adult in this relationship, and he showed that he's got some bravery, even if the armor seems kinda useless in a fight at this stage. It's not much, but it's a step in the right direction. No final verdicts yet, so I'm labeling both these characters a work in progress for the time being. Story-wise, it's another mixed bag. Courtney is having too much success too easily and too quickly, and when you do that, you're just writing her into a corner and limiting the kind of stories you can tell with her in the future. Courtney needs to be humbled before she becomes another Kate Kane. We need to see her training and struggling to learn how to do all this stuff, having failures as well as success, because that's what helps the audience sympathize and root for her, but it doesn't look like the writers are interested in doing that. That being said, there were enough emotional scenes that landed here that I was willing to give this episode a bit of a pass. There's still plenty of things they need to work on, but I'm not 100% convinced that they won't work on them like I was with Batwoman. Honestly, I didn't hate this episode, I just thought it had a lot of issues. But considering where the bar is right now post-Batwoman, only having a lot of issues is kind of a step up. Fix the characters, slow Courtney's hero's journey down to normal speed, and it's possible we could be talking about a different show in a few weeks. And that was your Stargirl Episode 2 review. If you enjoyed it, or liked seeing me lose all my hair for your amusement, leave me a comment down below. Also, while you're here, please help me fend off the YouTube algorithm by liking, sharing, subscribing. Make sure you're still subscribed, since YouTube may have unsubscribed you since the last time you were here, and I'll be back with more very soon. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.